Welcome to the Clyde FC Podcast, brought to you by State of Mind. We are back after what has been a pretty horrid week in the world of Clyde Football Club, and joining me to break it down and hopefully a wee bit of group counselling, shall we call it?
Absolutely.
We have John and Lynn. Folks, how are we doing?
Not too bad. It's been a difficult week, I think, but as you said, let's get the counselling started and break it down. Lynn, how are you doing?
Yeah, I have to say I've been better, but mainly footballing reasons, to be fair. So yeah, let's get the counselling started.
Yeah, so we've titled this show "Where Do We Go From Here?" It's pretty self-explanatory. It's been a very tough week. We have had some pretty bruising defeats along the way, and as it stands, we have a massive game tomorrow, quite frankly. Boyce, we'll come to yourself first. How would you describe this week in one word and try and keep it clean?
Difficult. I think all the conditions that we've had to deal with, it's just been a very tough week for everyone. Obviously, it's been like that throughout the whole season, but I think the games are just catching up with us now, and I think it's just the boys, their energy levels are maybe not what they would expect them, and I think that maybe shows in the performances. 3-0 to Peterhead, and a very difficult performance and result to take last night. So yeah, as you say, a big 6-pointer if you're looking for a cliche tomorrow.
Yeah, very much so. Lynn, same question to yourself. How would you describe it in one word?
Sorry to be so pessimistic here, but soul destroying.
I think that's 2 words, but
no, I'm
we'll
going
put a hyphen.
I'm going hyphenated. So.
Okay. Is that it?
I think that it kind of just sums it up. It just was such a bizarre week, coupled with last night's result that we'll obviously get to it when we kind of talk through the matches. But that sucker punch, and it felt like a massive sucker punch last night with the injury time winner from Forfar. Just destroyed my soul as described.
A good description there.
If a single second in a football match could sum up a club's week, I think it was that 92nd minute winner last night. Obviously, we do want you everyone to get involved. Say this is group counselling tonight, if nothing else. But we do want to get your thoughts on what is required over the next week. How are we going to get ourselves out of? Well, let's be honest, it's a bit of a mess at the moment. As it stands, we are looking at the playoffs, unless we get some points on the board starting tomorrow. Now, how we got here, first and foremost, we'll roll back to last Saturday in Aberdeenshire. We went north to Peterhead on the back of a pretty decent victory against Forfar, albeit they have been struggling, but you can only beat what's in front of you. And as we saw recently, it's not a given to beat them. Unfortunately, what transpired wasn't a particularly good 90 minutes. Lynn, coming to yourself first, what was your main take from the Peterhead performance?
It was just unfortunately just a terrible performance. It was more obviously in the second half. It just seemed to be in the space of 3 minutes, our game just collapsed beneath us after conceding that penalty. I think from Kev, tackling on the goal line, then giving away that penalty, and then to just kind of lack of concentration kind of 2-3 minutes later, and conceding a second was just. And then I think after that, the heads just well and truly went down. Then coupled with Howie's uncharacteristic mistake for the third goal as well, it was not pretty. Unfortunately, it didn't look like our midfield were almost kind of missing on that Saturday. It was not pretty to watch at all, and was, to use a word I've used already, pretty soul destroying. And it was obviously thankful that Dumbarton didn't gain any ground on us on that day, albeit disappointed. I went into the game fully hoping we might be able to replicate the 2-0 victory that we'd had not too long ago up there. Unfortunately not to be. Don't know whether again tiredness, fatigue kicking in. But yeah, it was not pretty to watch at all.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Lynn. You know, I think the transition into the post-split fixtures, we had a wee bit of momentum there with the win over Forfar. But I think it sums up our season. You know, consistency is a word that I would use. It wasn't consistent. I think the Peterhead game, you know, we were looking at it to get a win, to buoy us, you know, get a good start into this very tough last set of fixtures. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. I think the game had a lot of, you know, similarities with the last time we played them and beat them 2-0 up there. The first half, a very drab affair, and the first the game before the 2-0, I think, you know, it was 2 moments of magic that won it for us. That old cliche, you know, the other side of it, we've had mistakes that have cost us. The penalty, I think it was clumsy. You know, I won't go any further on with that, but it was just not a great goal to concede. And then, to be fair, Richie, he had a great game for them. I think he looks like a very good player coming up from the Highland League. And yeah, I think the heads went down after the penalty. Richie scored again, and then, you know, just a mistake. Everyone's human from Howie. Gave the third, and, you know, you were maybe looking at when they get a man sent off, Jason Brown, you would think maybe get a way back into the game, but, you know, it just wasn't to happen, and a very disappointing kind of night all in.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me, I think, early doors, we just looked nervous. I think it was the most nervous I've seen us look early in a game. Sometimes we do take some time to settle, but a lot of that's over the use of the ball, that the mistakes were there pretty early in the game. We just looked unsettled. Couple of comments coming in. Scoops, how we doing this evening, Scoops? 4 points minimum, really, over the next week. I would challenge it and probably say we really have to aim for 6. Keep it in our own hands, first and foremost. But 4 could be enough. Even 3 could be enough. Now, I do have a list of the different scenarios, and I'll bore it all to tears later on, so apologies for that. I've tried to keep it short. But yeah, that was far from an ideal start. I think that's fair to say. Mark Stewart getting in touch with us. No Clyde tops tonight, and we need a miracle. I'm not sure it's...
Mine's in the wash. No, I was just going to say mine's is in the wash, ready to go for tomorrow. That's the only reasoning behind that tonight.
Yeah, I do actually have mines with me, Mark, but the studio is an oven, and quite frankly, after last week, I wasn't doing that again. So apologies. Maybe we'll be back in next week.
Unfortunately, just coming straight down the M9 from work, there was no chance I was changing. So here we are.
Just all coincidental.
Absolutely, but no, here in the spirit.
Yeah. Just an army of comments coming in already. John Anderson, we should not be in the position we are in. Only 2 wins will be enough to avoid the relegation playoff. On the last few performances, the players don't look like they believe they can, and I think there's that definite confidence issue here, Boycey.
Yeah, you know, it doesn't look like the same team that, you know, was maybe there at the air game. I think there's a confidence. I think obviously the boys are knackered from the schedule. There's a few boys clearly carrying knocks, and then we've got the issue moving forward from last night, which we'll get on a few players out and a suspension. So it just goes from bad to worse, I feel. But listen, let's rally behind the boys, get behind them. I think, you know, probably should have won last night, and that would have set us up for a couple of decent games. But we are where we are, and we've just got to hopefully get, you know, 4 or 6 points. I'm sure you go through the scenarios in a bit, Paul. But for me, I'm looking for 2 wins. We've got to do it.
Yeah, I think just see for confidence, like I totally agree with you, Boycey. Like confidence wise, we just look a bit short, and particularly obviously what John's saying. Like it's one of those ones where you feel like the players just might need us, and obviously we can't be there, like to give them the lift possibly that they need in that last bit of energy that they possibly could use to get through these like tiring matches, you know, and it's frustrating, obviously, from our perspective, but obviously given events during the week, which are all obviously get touched upon, you know, obviously it's understandable why we can't be there, but you definitely feel this is where Clyde fans kind of come into their own and almost become a 12th man, which I think we sorely need at the minute.
Yeah, and absolutely full respect to the small group of fans that did travel up to Peterhead and Forfar during the week. Big respect there, and you know, obviously a few of them were there, but hopefully we can all get behind them very soon.
Yeah, if ever there was an indication of what it's like to be a Clyde fan, it's when you do travel all that way midweek and you come back on the end of a defeat.
Yeah.
But yeah, massive shout out to the boys for doing it, who obviously did within the guidelines, we should add as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Ian Fitzpatrick, Fitz, how you doing, sir? Thanks for getting in touch. 4 points may not be enough. 6 has to be the target. Boys will be playing for contracts, which again is a very big point. Something that probably a lot of fans will want to discuss as to going forward into the summer. Not impossible, but biggest game in years tomorrow. 3 points are vital.
Yeah.
I think that's where we are at, and where we go from here is simple. It's 3 points tomorrow. It's a must-win. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, like I can't see if we don't beat Dumbarton tomorrow. I think unfortunately we're facing the playoffs next week. So it's an absolute must-win. It's a do or die scenario tomorrow, definitely.
Yeah, 6-pointer. One of the positives is we're at home, so hopefully we can do it. You know, Jim Duffy. We'll touch on the Dumbarton preview a wee bit, but I think Jim Duffy, you know, he sets up his team very well when he knows what he needs. So I think they'll come for a draw, but hopefully we've got the tactics to kind of match and beat that as well.
Yeah, we've got a couple of comments just coming in here as well from Stuart. First one just touching upon the recruitment being an issue in his opinion, and I would say quite a few fans' opinions. Obviously we lost John Rankin, Chris McStay, Ray Grant, who were pivotal to our performance last season, and many fans do feel that we never were able to replace them. And he follows that up, wrong comment, the midfield has been posted missing too many times this season, and that we are resorting too quickly to long balls, and Goody has been very, very isolated at times, Boise.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think it's clear to see that the midfield hasn't been what it should have been this year. Obviously, you lose 3 massive players in, you know, quick succession, and you know they are very difficult to replace. You know, Ray Grant, he was fantastic for us, and yeah, I just think that's not been. Has prioritised the right word? It's just not been there. And when you've got players like Ross Cunningham, you know, out wide right, I personally would maybe like to see him, you know, up closer to Goodwillie as well, moving forward. But yeah, certainly long balls to Goodwillie maybe doesn't suit his game. I've spoken about it before. You know, that wee ball through the middle from midfield, feeding them through, is probably the way to go. But again, I think you know, Goody's been a wee bit off as well. So
yeah, I think there's been a lot of chat on various kind of media channels or football forums, etc. That Goody does appear to be carrying something. Yeah. Obviously, he's missed some games. It doesn't look as though he's at 100%. Lynn, he's still a danger, as he's proven last night, getting a goal. But it does look as though that it's just not that 100% that we really, really need right now.
Yeah, I do kind of agree that he's got potentially carrying a knock, and that's affecting his performance. But I also think it is partly down to as well. Unfortunately, our midfield just have not been as powerful or as present as what they should have been in our particularly last few games. He's not getting the service at all, and when he does get it, that kind of one bit of, unfortunately, it was obviously Kevin Nicol that assisted him last night, which is not normally like Kev's really known for his assists, but he was one that kind of drove forward and got the pass into Goody. When he gets the ball into his feet, he does what he does best. And unfortunately, obviously missed a chance sort of later on, kind of in the second half, where kind of just put a shot past the post, and kind of again, like, you don't know, is that down to match fitness? Is that or was it just like sometimes Goody kind of maybe takes too many touches and kind of you think he should score but then doesn't. But I don't know. It's hard to feel. I don't like to criticise, because I think it would be better to judge him once he's getting the service, and I feel like at the minute he's not been getting the service. So I think it would be really, really harsh to be massively critical of him.
Yeah, just touching on Kevin Nicol, I thought it was very interesting in a very conservative midfield three with him, McGlinchey and Thompson. Nicol was actually the one going forward, and I don't know if anyone else caught it, but there was some piece of skill by Kevin on the right hand side, which I will hereby name the Forfa flip flap. Couldn't believe it. When you squint, it looks like you're watching Zidane with Kevin Nicol sometimes. But no, I think that he's done well since he's came back. But it's definitely been a battling few months for the guys, and I think that's clear to see from the recent performances. Yeah,
and some of the other comments that are coming in, and I'm trying to keep up with them because it's quite busy tonight. The midfield, perhaps a lack of creativity being an issue, Boise.
Yeah, I mean, as I've just said, it was quite a conservative pick. Maybe that was the tactics to kind of stop. We do have creative players, out on the left and out on the right, and loving Cunningham. But yeah, with the exception of a couple of players, there's not too much spark, I think, going forward. Now, that's not to say that the midfield isn't good enough. It's just there seems to be things that don't really fit together for the performances. But again, it's where we are just now.
Yeah, so just got a new watcher, Kelso. Thank you for joining us. This podcast has become a guilty pleasure. Don't just make it a guilty pleasure, just make it a weekly pleasure. And you've started checking out Clyde's results. Welcome to the team. And he says hopefully we stay up. Very much like to mirror that statement. Mark Stewart, this tickled me. Goodwill, he hasn't had any service all year. He would need a ladder 20 feet high or legs like Mr. Tickle to control some of the balls put up to him. Yeah, so I think the general theme of we're not playing to our strengths, or our key players' strengths, is not helping matters. And that was very much fundamental to the Peterhead defeat. We gave away the ball extremely cheaply, and it couldn't have been an easier 90 minutes, quite frankly, for them. So, as you touched upon, Lynn, no damage done. We moved on to Tuesday. Now, before we start, obviously Tuesday was, I think it's not ridiculous to say it was a highly controversial evening. I would like to stress that any opinions made by ourselves or any commentators are not necessarily that of Clyde Football Club here. We are fans, we are emotive around our football club just like everyone else. However, anything that is obviously discussed, we will not be saying anything that's going to be too risky.
Nah, we've all got our opinions.
Yeah. So we'll walk through the timeline as it happened from the perspective of sitting watching on the stream as opposed to what's obviously came out. So it was due for a 7 o'clock kickoff, and the players were ready to take to the pitch. At which point there was a delay to the kickoff by 15 minutes. At that point, there was some confusion over what the delay was about. I think a lot of people assumed it was maybe even a kick clash.
Those pesky shots.
Yeah, pesky shots. Yeah. People thought. Alas, not. If only. And
if only.
Yes, sometime later, around 20 to 8, quarter to 8, I believe, the match was officially called off. Still at this time, there was very little, obviously, in the way of official information. Short time after, both clubs had released statements to their respective websites confirming that the match had been called off due to a positive COVID test within the Clyde squad. Now, that is only the start of the story, unsurprisingly, when it comes to Clyde Football Club. So, as it had transpired, the match had been given the green light by the joint response group to take part on, after a kind of risk assessment. Boyce, you'll probably be maybe a bit more well versed to discuss that side of things if anyone has any questions or points on it.
Yep.
The East Fife players had concerns over their own safety and the safety of their families, partners, some of which are heavily pregnant. And as a result, they made a decision that they were not going to fulfil the fixture. The following day, the SPFL opened disciplinary proceedings against East Fife, and that ultimately led to an £11,000 fine, £10,000 of which has been suspended, and the match will now take place on the 6th of May, next Thursday.
Yeah,
next Thursday. Thanks, Boyce. So, who wants to take this one first?
Listen, I'll go. So obviously watching it, never seen anything quite like it. You know, the players come out. There's obviously something, you know, not right. Initially thought it was a kick clash, but then, you know, rumblings start happening online, and you start to think, well, the climate we're in, is there a positive test for either team? I think when the ref had kind of called it, there was a few kind of statements came out by the clubs, you know, saying what had happened, and in my personal opinion, you know, I think the clubs were maybe both put in a position, so to say, where a decision had to be made. Personally, I would have probably done the same as East Fife and not played the match. But again, that's you know, my personal opinion. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very difficult one. I mean, the game's been replayed, which I think is the fairest option. You know, there's rumblings of should we be awarded a 3-0 win because of it. In the circumstances, you know, with the whole COVID argument to it, I think this is probably the fairest outcome, in my opinion. And, you know, there was a statement came out today from East Fife that, you know, they've basically said they accept the blame for not fulfilling the fixture. They accept their fine. They've come out and supported Clyde, and, you know, no blame has been attributed to Clyde, which is, you know, good to see. And they're looking forward to playing us on Thursday. Hopefully they won't enjoy the end result of us beating them and staying up. But yeah, I just think it's, as you mentioned at the start, Paul, it's very controversial. In my opinion, the outcome of it, I think, has been the fairest. I don't know what you think, Lynn.
Yeah, just before you start, Lynn, I brought up your brother's comment just to remind you to behave and not say anything like this. So carry on.
Thanks. I think he might be saying that because I did end up probably feeling a bit angry over the course of the week, kind of flipping between. I do agree with Boyce in the sense that, yeah, if the shoe was on the other foot, I do feel that I would be unhappy if that situation had happened to Clyde and we would be potentially been asked to fulfil a fixture under that condition. I think also what kind of came out in the media also didn't lend itself very well, and kind of before sort of when the SPFL kind of got involved and mentioned that there was going to be disciplinary proceedings, there was a lot of kind of interviews being carried out, and people were under kind of a bit of confusion as to why we'd received results so late, etc. But I think it's been kind of covered now in the SPFL statement that, in fact, obviously the test results were in relation to our match that we were due to play last night against Forfar. You have to submit test results 48 hours in advance of playing kind of teams in the league. So testing once a week only kind of covered us for that game. The testing we'd done kind of earlier in the week had covered us for the Peterhead game and had covered us for that East Fife game. So I think that's where there was a bit of confusion that had arisen on kind of a number of media outlets and kind of almost calling that Clyde were at fault in some way for that, or there was an incompetence on our part. But I think now with the statements that have come out sort of since it's been proved, obviously there was no incompetence there, and unfortunately it was the timing of when those results were received. From what I'm led to believe, you have up until midnight to submit results to the SFA. So, we could have actually been in the position that actually we didn't get those results before the start of the match, and they could have arrived at half time, or they could have arrived, after full time, by which time, unfortunately people have been then put in that position where that positive player has then, potentially mixed with more people. So in terms of that, actually, it coming in beforehand was actually probably a good fortune, in the sense that we were able to send that person away, and they were able to go away in quarantine, and we could then start the process after the match of identifying close contacts and getting those in self-isolation, just so that the rest of the squad are hopefully kept intact to fulfil what is going to be still a jam-packed fixture schedule. So that's more where my, I think, initial anger lay, that it felt like at some points that Clyde were almost kind of getting blamed for it when there was no blame attached to any club here. It was an unfortunate situation, and no one was at fault for anything that happened. And I'm glad, obviously, the kind of subsequent statements that have come out have come out and kind of proved that. So and I thank East Fife for that statement today, because I think that definitely, I think it's time to kind of draw a line under it and just kind of move on to next Thursday.
Yeah, completely agree, Lynn. And as I say, it's been quite a polarising thing across multiple fan bases that have obviously, it's been quite a big story in Scottish football this week. It's odd that days away from Celtic playing Rangers that Clyde and East Fife have been taking the headlines. So
it was strange to see Clyde trending on Twitter twice in a week.
Yeah, it very much was. Hopefully the next time it's for some positive news. So just on that, there's some different comments coming in. Is the rule book with regards to unfulfilment of fixtures, I think, does state it's meant to be a 3-0 victory for the person or the team that do not pull out the fixture. Now, there's a lot of circumstance, I think, behind this. Boyce, you've touched upon it, a 3-0 loss would have been, in your opinion, harsh?
Listen, if East Fife turn up, refuse to play the game just because they don't feel like playing, then 3-0 to us, 3 points, 3 Scott Rumsby goals, a hat-trick. But, the added circumstance of the fact that there was a positive test in the Clyde camp, that obviously, heightens the risk of any transmission between players. I think that would have been, it's in the rules, but I think that would have been very, very harsh on East Fife, and I think we've all got to really look at it and flip it. We wouldn't be happy with that either, if that had happened to us. So, in my opinion, I find it very, very strange that the game went ahead, or was going to go ahead, because there was that positive test, and the game was due to start in such a short space of time. I think it would have been much easier just to take the decision out of both clubs' hands and just cancel it there and then. But we are where we are, and thankfully, as Lynn mentioned, it's all of the line drawn under it now by East Fife's what I thought was an excellent statement, and we move on.
Yeah, so it seems to be a recurring theme in the comments that, as Mark Stewart saying here, regardless of the rule book, replaying the game is the correct decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
There would have been outcomes potentially even for the likes of Dumbarton as well. Now, obviously, we have a rivalry with Dumbarton at present, given the current situation. There's no historical thing there. It is very much obviously the situation that we find ourselves in the relegation dogfight. It could have potentially have put a football club down without a a football match being played, and potentially we could have benefited from that, but it would have been, even myself, a bit of a sour taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And one point that Craig Black, how you doing, Craig? Thanks for joining us. Hopefully we'll get you back in the show next week. Hope you're still working, actually. I thought you might be working now, Craig.
Slacking.
Hope your boss isn't watching. Obviously, at the heart of this, we do have a player who has a positive COVID test, and our thoughts have to be with that player and make sure that they are as well as they can be. Hopefully they're asymptomatic and being a fit footballer, that they're not feeling too rubbish. I almost said a bad word there.
Well caught.
A slight different take on Clyde's run of form. Do we think that Clyde's loss of form is down to Danny's haircut, i.e. Samson Delilah scenario? The loss of his strength since he found the barber shears?
Potentially, it was a cracking pair of locks. I was jealous of them personally, but
well, you and me both, Boise. So yeah, the match will be going ahead next Thursday. So we'll turn our attention to last night, and if we thought Peterhead was bad, it got worse, didn't it, Lynn? It never rains but it pours.
Yeah, to be honest, I fully went into this match thinking, right, hopefully this will be 3 points, hopefully a bit of a morale boost, going into then a match against Dumbarton, exactly what we need, like a confidence boosting one after losing to Peterhead. And I fully expected, given our kind of previous 2 matches against them, having scored like 3 times in each of the matches, I didn't foresee like any problems. Or maybe given the outcome of the disciplinary hearing that day, maybe I should have seen that it wasn't kind of quite going to go our way that day. It just, like when we went 1-0 up fairly quickly, I thought, right, well, here we go, right, great, nice early goal, settle the nerves. And I think, us cheering that particular goal, I think let out a whole lot of frustration from the kind of stuff, everything from Tuesday night and that not going ahead. So yeah, it felt good. Like, great, as this rest from Tuesday night actually benefited us here. And yeah, unfortunately, just before first started to kind of creep back into it, it was a soft equaliser to lose. Unfortunately, Rumsey, I think, kind of had a couple of bubbles to the head, had a couple of chances to clear that, but then unfortunately it's taken a massive deflection and good goal, but bit of luck with that there. And then that absolute, I think I touched on it at the start of the show, massive sucker punch in injury time after Marky Monroe gets sent off. I did feel that was for kind of 2 soft yellows, but at the same time, that indiscipline is going to obviously cost us for the Dumbarton game. We're going to be without him as well, on top of potentially players that are self-isolating as well. So yeah, quite a costly game just all in, and now makes tomorrow all the more important.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, Paul. Got to agree, I think with the 6-1 aggregate scoreline we had over Forfar throughout the season, you see Goodwillie scoring 10 minutes in, you think, here we go again. But I don't know, I felt like we just kind of fell away after the goal, strangely. And Forfar, fair play to them, they're fighting for their lives. They came straight back into it with the deflected goal. Rumsby, probably done better. Screenshot that. Or
take note of the date and time, guys.
Yeah, but
John Boyce,
the
typical of Scott Rumsby.
the sucker punch goal, as Lynn mentioned, it's just after Marky Monroe's been sent off, came down that side. Maybe we just didn't get set tactically for that time, and it's just a tap in. I said it at the time, it definitely summed up what is a basement battle and a relegation dogfight. All the cliches are coming out tonight. But yeah, touching on the East Fife, schedule match as well. Before the split, I thought that the schedule in 9th was going to be a bit better than the schedule in 8th, and you know, we managed to get 8th. You know, it's just one of those things. But now that the game against East Fife is Thursday, I actually thought before the match last night it was a good thing, because we would have had a rest on Tuesday, unbeknown, and then we would have a rest this Tuesday, play on Thursday. We're playing on the last game of the season. We know what we have to do against East Fife. And, you know, on the other side of the coin, that leaves us a few days until the playoff, which might be a potential scenario that we have to look at. So, yeah, last night, how do you sum it up? Just gutting.
I thought for the first 15-20 minutes, I think you maybe touched upon it, boys, say, like, the goal aside, I felt we were very much in control. We weren't ripping them apart, we weren't peppering their goal with shots or anything, but very much in control, on top, using the ball well enough. We weren't resorting to, as we've touched upon, the default long ball to try and hit Goody as quickly as possible. But then it was like the air just gets slowly sucked out of us. And by the time Forfar equalised, there was just that air of inevitability about it. And I don't know if it's just because our confidence is so fragile, maybe as a fan base, never mind the players, that it just felt like that was coming, even though it was, as Lynn, you mentioned, a pretty heavily deflected shot. Thereafter, we never really settled again, though, Lynn, did we? It was very, very scrappy fair. And, yeah, Forfar just kind of dug in, really. The big chance that Goody had aside, we never really done anything to say that we definitely should have won the game.
I thought in particular in midfield is where they started to really show us up. Unfortunately, our midfield, as I'd kind of maybe mentioned earlier, again, like in Peterhead game, where they just almost kind of, not, I feel bad saying disappeared, but Forfar dug in, and we resorted to, when we got chances, to long range efforts. Ali loves them, thinking in particular, and that just seems that we were already thinking we were out of options when, you know, and it looked like the midfield were almost scared to take control or be creative in any way to help try and set up something. It was almost like somebody was scared of taking that responsibility, which is I can understand slightly, but at the same time, you know, we're in a relegation dogfight. Someone needs to take the bull by the horns and try and set up Goody, or whoever, or Ali, or whoever's, you know, kind of coming forward, that we need to take our chances and be clinical with them. And without, I think, a midfield creating like that, we're not going to win games, and we hopefully need a big performance from them tomorrow.
It's cliche Friday here.
I know it is.
Listen, I think you've done well explaining that, Lynn. I think the midfield wasn't there, and I don't know, I'll put it out to you. Do you feel like when we run out of options, we just bypass the midfield and hit it long and hope? There doesn't seem to be a plan B, a plan C. And then we saw, I believe, you know, Martin McNiff came on similar to Lang to go up top. You know, playing that long ball again. Do you feel that's something that could maybe work in the future, or do you think that we really need another option?
I think at the moment it's a bit square pegs, round holes. The match last night was affected by the incident, shall we call it that, on Tuesday. We were missing bodies, which we can only assume are players who were close contacts of the player who was positive for COVID. We were missing a number. One of probably the most kind of bigger names, if we could say it, or most prominent names, in my opinion, missing was Lewis Jamieson.
Yeah, I agree.
Who since coming to the club has done fantastically well for us, and when Goody has maybe been struggling for fitness, he's managed to bag himself 5 goals, which, considering this is his first real run at top level football, it's been a pretty decent return. He did very well in the last game against Forfar. We really need someone I think, to do the legwork for Goody just now.
Yeah.
Because he is struggling. I think he really is struggling physically.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, without Jameson, that, like, touch upon the creativity section I mentioned earlier with the midfield, just now it's not there, and Lewis Jameson definitely gave us that option. You know, when him and Goody were partnered, I thought that was a great, well, for the most part, a great partnership, because, you know, Lewis was somebody that could give Goody a bit of service. You can only assume that potentially he was a close contact. I don't believe he was carrying an injury or anything. But it's just typical Clyde, isn't it, that we lose somebody that we badly need when they run up in these fixtures.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, a good point. The boys have obviously been working their socks off, and when that supporting cast that helps everyone dwindles, it's just only going to get more and more difficult. And I think that's what we've seen in the last few weeks, unfortunately. You know, the boys are putting all their efforts in, I've got no doubts about that, but it's just the circumstance and conditions that are absolutely doing us in at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think perhaps the way the matches are unfolding and how perhaps we are playing, it's not helping the legs either when you are chasing the ball. It's so much easier to play football in this cliche central if you have the ball.
Lewis Jameson did that a lot. Like, he was just tirelessly running about with the ball, like chasing things down, and definitely think we missed that last night.
Looks like a young Goody, doesn't he? Just takes the ball and drives.
Yeah, and I think as well, just you even go back to Lewis's first goal for the club away to Montrose, where it was the very epitome of chasing down nothing. The keeper has the ball at his feet, ready to clear it, and poof, there's Lewis Jameson, goal. It is that work ethic that we need. Well, I brought up this comment here from Neil. This is feeling like the season where we nearly finished in the League 2 playoff. I'm sure we'll all remember that, not very fondly.
No.
A big win last game. Again, boys, I think we drew that game, and history repeats itself.
I would take a Goody hand of God's goal, like, to beat Dumbarton tomorrow.
I hope
100%.
I hope you're not saying that cheating's okay here, Lynn.
No, I'm not. But if it was, I would take any form of goal, be it a penalty, a scrappy, toe poke, like, as long as we get that. Yeah, any form of goal tomorrow, or good luck, I would take it in a heartbeat and take the run with the 3 points.
Yeah, and moving on to the Dumbarton game, I think it's going to be one of those games, isn't it? It's going to be a very scrappy affair. We know what Dumbarton can do. They dig in. They're coming to Broadwood knowing what they need. And Jim Duffy, as I mentioned before, he can set them up to do that. We've seen that in the league this season.
Yeah. I dare bring this comment up. The reality is that we can still be relegated straight down without the playoffs. After last night's result, it would be. I wouldn't disagree to say that it would be an embarrassment, given that we do have some of the players that we do have. Whatever we feel any deficiencies may lie within the squad, we still do have arguably the best striker out with top flight in Scotland, and again arguably the best, if not one of the best goalkeepers in the league. It's a decent starting point for a squad, and should we be doing better, Boise?
Yeah, we probably should. Like, again, it all comes down to the conditions. You know, I'm going to use that word, Paul. It's an unprecedented season. It's I see your face there. I'm just not getting any more looks tonight. It's just, I just want it to end. You know, I just want to get back into the stands. I just want to support the club I love, and I just want to get back to supporting the lads that play for that club. It's been an absolute horrible year, and I'm sure everyone agrees with that. You know, it's just been poor. There's been thing after thing that's come along, and whether we've dealt with it in the appropriate manner or not, you know, I don't know. But I just really hope that we can win tomorrow and set ourselves up to know what we have to do on Thursday. If we do have to go into the playoffs, I think we've got a squad there that can keep us up, make no doubt about it. I think, who is it that's coming up? Potentially it's Edinburgh, Stirling.
Quite a few, I
Edinburgh,
think.
Elgin, Stirling and Stranraer.
Yeah. I think we can take them. But again, there's that old football talk of momentum.
Is that a cliche again?
Yeah.
That's why I said football talk, Paul.
Maybe we should have named this particular show how many cliches can be fit in an hour.
Is it because we don't really know what's went wrong and we're just using cliches?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Just trying to pretend we know what we're talking about.
But yeah, I think you've obviously got to have one eye in the playoffs. You've got to be realistic. I would love to finish 8th, but the way the team's playing right now with the confidence and the members that we're missing, I think it's definitely a 50-50 for me.
It's an uphill task. Certainly after last night, that's I'm looking at my notes that I've wrote. It's an uphill task. We missed a big chance last night, and we are very quickly running out of chances to fix this mess, which does bring us back to the title of the show. Where do we go from here? What is the plan for tomorrow, Lynn? How do you fix the issues? You are Danny Lennon for the evening. Danny's got his long hair back, slightly less grey. You're in charge. What do you do to break down the Dumbarton wall? Which we just can't do. It's that $1 million question for Clyde Football Club.
Well, do you know, kind of not going into too much of what I think the team would be. We have beaten Dumbarton this season, albeit it was back in the League Cup way back in, was that August, September time? October. Oh gosh, okay. No, it's not quite as far back as I thought then. It feels longer. And we, to be fair, obviously we ended up conceding 2 late goals and it ended up being 3-2. But when we were like up and cruising at points, and that was from playing short, sharp, passing football. That's how we beat a Dumbarton side. It's not from the way we've lost to Dumbarton has been resorting to, they like us playing the long ball. They like us not having any other option. They kind of close us down and we resort to playing the long ball up to Goody, which it doesn't suit his game because they've got big massive defenders in and around them. So that's where we don't get any joy, and it just goes right into Jim Duffy's playbook, and it suits Dumbarton right down to the ground. And I do think they'll be coming for a draw tomorrow, because that should be enough for them. So yeah, I want to set up with a kind of possibly an attacking, passing team. I think that's how we need to play it. I don't want us resorting, and we need to, as I said earlier, we need the midfield all kind of taking ownership and responsibility and trying to create the service for Goody or whoever else is, and Cunningham, as well, kind of going forward as well. We just need that service through to any of them to kind of create the opportunities to try and win this game and take it by the scruff of the neck.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely going to be a wall coming to Broadwood on Saturday. Duffy's going to set up for the draw. That's all they need. For me, I'd like to see Lamont start in the middle with a couple of holding midfielders and go right down the middle, because we've tried to play out in the wings and it's not worked. We need to have that direct style that you spoke about, Lynn. I completely appreciate that the boys have played a lot of games in a short space of time, so the legs maybe aren't going to be there like they were earlier on in the season, but we've got to play that sharp passing and cut them through the middle, because that's where we play best. That's where Good Willie plays best. We've got to get Lamont on the ball. We've got to support them, and we've just got to go for it. It's all guns blazing. No, there's another one.
Yeah, all guns blazing.
I'm so sorry, everyone. So sorry.
I'm going to watch this back and take a tally mark.
Yeah,
it's double fingers by now.
But no, it's just, we've got to go for it. There's no other option. And we've got to leave everything in the park.
Yeah.
But there's another one.
Going to bring this up, Mark. Very active in the comments tonight. Thank you very much, Mark. She's saying 3 at the back, 4 in midfield, 3 up front. We need to go for it.
I can't disagree with that.
I cannot disagree with it. I think we really have to. We have played to Dumbarton's strengths. Morgan Neal must mark in his calendar when we're due to play them with a wee smiley face next to it, because he knows I get the head of the ball a lot that day and it's going to be great. So it's about time we get that guy running.
But that's my point. You know, they're very good at defending. They've got big boys at the back.
They've got one of the best clean sheet records.
Yeah, they've got
third best, I think.
Yeah, third best defensive record in the league, right? That's why I'm saying we've got to go for it through the middle and keep the ball on the deck, because their strength is clearing balls out the box. Jim Duffy likes to build big physical teams. Now we get, Lovey on the ball, we get Cunningham on the ball, we get Goody on the ball, we run at them. That will cause them problems.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that for me.
Yeah,
get the ball down on the deck and drive.
Yeah.
Stuart Ross is pretty much paraphrasing what we're saying here, guys, and I have to say, love the avatar there, Stuart. Goody, and he's looking magnificent, celebrating a goal. Hopefully we'll see that tomorrow.
Yeah,
at least once.
Yeah.
6 times.
6 times minimum. That'd be great, boys. We need to be at them from the start and just get in about them. Yeah, it really is as simple as that. Tomorrow, it could be disaster, but it might not be. There are different scenarios that could play out. And I did warn you at the start of the show I was going to bore you with the different scenarios and permutations.
Here we go. I've been waiting 52 minutes for this. Let's go.
Now, I've kept it condensed, right, because it is only an hour show. Simple maths here is Dumbarton win tomorrow, we're in the playoffs. We're waiting to see who we then face, and we've got effectively nothing more than a glorified bounce match against East Fife next Thursday. The draw is where it gets a wee bit iffy. So a draw, we would still be alive with a chance to finish 8th, but would then require Dumbarton not to win on their match on Tuesday.
Who have they got?
Forfar.
Right.
We would obviously prefer them to lose, as it would make things a bit easier for ourselves. We would then need to beat East Fife on Thursday, and there is a scenario where goal difference could even come into play. I've not went into any great detail with that, because I looked at it and went, nah, I need to have my dinner or I lie down. The best case scenario is Clyde win, we move up to 8th, and that could be enough depending on whether or not Dumbarton then do not win against Forfar. If they were to lose against Forfar and we win tomorrow, job's a good one. We finish 8th. Any other result for Dumbarton would leave us needing to match their result. So did you all take enough notes there?
Yep. I think those are not still, I think we touched upon it earlier, do we know, if we lose, Dumbarton win tomorrow, there's still the chance that we could finish 10th, and I think Mark's kind of highlighted that actually, in terms of goal difference, if we lose our 2 games and Forfar win their two games and overturn, is it a 4-5 goal deficit, we could automatically go down and not even win the playoffs.
Let's not think about that. Let's score that off your list.
I was trying to turn
sorry, but I'm trying
slightly more positive to end the show on, guys. I mean, I'm trying my best here.
Yeah. But see, one thing I wanted to say, in your draw scenario tomorrow, in Dumbarton playing Forfar are still looking to be safe in that scenario, or will they be?
It's Tuesday. Yeah, depending on.
Craig's saying it's Dumbarton v Peterhead on Tuesday night. Thanks for keeping us correct.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh. Right, Craig, sub for Paul next week.
That's me getting my jotters. Fair enough.
Offcoming player for Clyde podcast.
Yeah, so Dumbarton are at home with Peterhead on Tuesday. Peterhead in fine form.
Yeah, won the last 3.
Obviously, when we went up to face them and obviously got a bit of a bruising, they had just beaten Falkirk, and albeit it was only 1-0, it was a pretty convincing victory. Falkirk have obviously had their issues of late, given their pretty significant collapse, although perhaps people in glass houses shouldn't be throwing stones.
Yes, well.
Stuart Ross should really have done a PowerPoint. Yeah. PowerPoints aren't a strong point on my part. I maybe need to speak to Fitz on that one.
We'll get slides up on the Twitter.
Aye, slides. And
Although, no,
yeah,
maybe not.
before
We'll
on Tuesday.
need to do that on Tuesday. We'll not be doing that this weekend, remember, guys?
Yeah, good segue into what we're supporting this weekend, Paul.
What was that, sorry, boys?
Good segue into what we're supporting this weekend with the media blackout.
Yes, so we are supporting the media blackout, which is to hopefully make social media companies take more ownership of online abuse, whether that be racist or sexism, any type of verbal abuse. It's simply not on. So we are supporting that, and as of 3 p.m. this afternoon and until midnight on Monday, the podcast channels will be silent, as will the official Clyde social media accounts and many others across the United Kingdom, possibly further. We will be back on Tuesday with some details as to our special guest next week. We will be recording with Clyde Hall of Famer Pat Nevin next Friday for a show to be put out at a later date. Now, hopefully, when we are talking to Pat, we can discuss our great escape, sitting 8th, and everyone's smiling, and you can look forward to the show being released. Pat will be joining us to discuss his footballing career. He does have a book coming out as well, which we'll touch upon. For any Clyde fan that is looking to maybe ask Pat a question, we will put details out on Tuesday as to how you can go about doing that. Mark Stewart, no, we cannot do a football blackout, I'm afraid, sir.
Oh no.
We've got a few still to go. And Fitz, yeah, we do appreciate that we need to fight for your time now, but you know where your true loyalties lie, sir. So Jim Duffy's apparently on Clyde Super Scoreboard just now, so hopefully he's letting his guard down and underprepared for tomorrow. So, yeah, on that note, I'd just like to just quickly as well, before we finish up, just to reiterate the point that we made last week on mental health. There has been obviously a lot of chat in the last 24 hours. There's a lot going on. We won't obviously talk on specifics with regards to it, but I think it's quite pertinent just now just to say that if anyone is struggling with their mental health, we appreciate that football can be a release for everyone, and given recent results, I've not really had that. But we do hope that when we do get that win and things start looking brighter, if you are struggling, it maybe gives you that wee perk up. But if you are maybe not feeling great, please do reach out to anyone, ourselves, friends, family. There's always someone looking to help. And yeah, just keep safe, keep your head up, and until next time, come on the Bully Wee.
On the Clyde.
On the Clyde.